I didn't see you there. Well, for the 10 people who wanted me to come back to YouTube, you got your wish. I've been thinking about it for quite some time. Um, really trying to wrap my head around the current state of professional wrestling. You know, the thing I always drone on and on and on about. The thing that people hate most about me, not to sound like Daniel Bryan, but I'm not going to sit here and talk about myself, um, talk about me, because the world doesn't revolve around me. But since we're on the subject of Daniel Bryan, am I the only one who sees a problem with Daniel Bryan facing Drew Gulak for the round one preliminaries for the Intercontinental Championship, the vacated Intercontinental Championship, as I've seen on Twitter? Now, here's the problem, okay? Gulak just quit the company, and Bryan seems to have a track record for getting put in matches that he does not deserve, as we've spoken about in the past. He doesn't belong anywhere near the title picture in the Intercontinental Championship, let alone anywhere near the Intercontinental Champion in its own right. So allow me to do some fantasy booking, if you will. Seeing as though that Gulak is going to be practically Gulak is going to be quitting. I'm guessing due to some contract disputes. Everyone has them once in a while. But seeing as though that Gulak is going to be quitting, wouldn't it be appropriate to put someone in there to actually make Bryan look strong? If, and only if, you were looking to make Bryan look strong at all. Excuse me. Or, for that matter, here's a crazy idea. Seeing as though that Daniel Bryan already has a bunch of credentials. He's already made his name in the WWE. He's already had ample amount of opportunity. All he has to do is walk into someone's office and say, hey, can I have a championship match, please? And then they'll say, you're damn straight you can have a championship match. You ain't gonna ask please. God dang. The only thing you gotta do is walk in that office and wipe your ass and record it on your telephone, on your smartphone. Put it up on Twitter, and everybody and their mother sees it, and then they'll be like, oh, it's little Daniel Bryan, and he's wiping his ass. Because everything that this man does practically gets praised. It wouldn't matter if he was a child molester. You want to know what they would think? They would just, I mean, it's little Daniel Bryan. So what can you do? Seeing as though that Daniel Bryan is not a child molester. Matter of fact, he wants his kid, he wants another kid from his wife. He wants another kid from his wife, but his wife doesn't want to have a kid. On an episode preview, and we'll get back to what we were talking about here in just a second, and I'll show you how you could possibly book that correctly. Anyway, in an episode previous to them showing previews, they were showing previews for a airing of Total Bellas, I think is the name of it, or Total Divas. And what ended up happening was Bryan was mad at his wife, Brie Bella, because she didn't want to have children. In the episode summary that I was reading, apparently they were having a little bit of problems, communication problems, and in any sort of relationship, whether it be business or otherwise, communication is all that you have. Whether it's personal or whether it's kind of like business communication. And that's normally what either ends careers or ends relationships. Nonetheless, what I mean to say is that Brian is a very selfish human being because of the fact that he wants children, but he's not thinking about what his wife wants. Because the episode concludes, or at least the episode summary concludes, with the viewer being left whether or not they want to have children or not. And Brian's wife, obviously the person who has to bear the damn thing for 9 months in her fucking belly, doesn't want children, but Brian looks at her, apparently according to this episode summary that I was reading, and said, "I think you're being very stingy." Excuse me? Daniel Bryan, do you not know who carries the children? Are you... Is this upside down town? What exactly happened? I don't really think he gets the concept of having children, but regardless of that, let's go ahead and wipe that for a second. Forget about upside down town where Daniel Bryan lives. Let's go ahead and talk about right side uptown. I'm going to stop saying that. But what I mean to say is that Brian is being put in a situation in which that, one, he does not deserve, two, he has not earned, and for that matter, three, he kind of doesn't belong. And I'll get straight to it. If Brian and Gulak, I mean the obvious winner, seeing as though that Gulak is quitting due to contract disputes or injuries or anything like that. He's quitting, he's not being fired, so calm down, Marks. What ends up happening is, and the obvious choice, even if Gulak wasn't, this 1 second, even if Gulak wasn't quitting the WWE, the obvious choice would still be Daniel Bryan, because Gulak is only applicable, according to his contract, for one championship, not the Intercontinental. Can you guess? Right. You can guess. It's the Cruiserweight Championship. Part of the reason why Austin Aries left the company, part of the reason why Neville, I'm assuming, left the company, seeing as though that Aries has wrestled in other venues through other companies, and he's faced far larger guys, and for that matter had far more prestigious titles handed to him, rather, and probably made a lot more money than anything that the WWE can offer him. They just want to keep him in the Cruiserweight division, kind of make him look like he's an afterthought, even though he's not. But I've already talked about that before. I'm going to get straight to the Intercontinental Championship. Excuse me for talking so fast, but I need to get a little bit of this out. Daniel Bryan is in a situation where he doesn't belong, and how can you book this right? Well, one of two things need to happen here. You either need to take Bryan out, or you need to take Gulak out. And the second really can't happen, because Gulak, technically before the match starts, is already under contract. He's obligated to perform in the WWE. However, Bryan, what you could do is take Bryan out of the equation, make whoever is wrestling Drew Gulak look... I mean, Gulak is a great performer, don't get me wrong. He does awesome, amazing suplexes. He can flip. He can do a lot of aerial attacks. I would give him a lot of credibility for that, as well as the fact that he's very nimble, very light, very, if I had to pick someone to job to, I'm glad that it was Drew Gulak. And that's what strikes me as odd. Why would he quit if he was being treated correctly? And I'm not sure why he's quitting. I'm just assuming that it's a contract dispute, something to do with this COVID-19 bullshit, seeing as though that a lot of people got fired, especially the WWE staff. There were like 32 superstars that got fired, like for the third time in their careers. Um, Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows got fired from the WWE, and now they're just parodying everything in the WWE on their Instagram. And Gallows is amazing with some of his man, I'm getting so off subject, I know, but Gallows is amazing with some of his just the videos that he does with the Machine Gun Carl Anderson. They're amazing. You'd have to check them out on your own time, I guess. Basically, you just need to take Daniel Bryan out of the Intercontinental Championship match. Because, and I've already said because, but just in case you didn't hear me, he doesn't belong there. He's already had ample amount of opportunity to do anything. The minute that he touches the championship, or for that matter, he gets put in the same sentence. Like if I was to utter a sentence that had Daniel Bryan's name in it with the Intercontinental Championship, that automatically drops the value of the Intercontinental title drastically. Drastically. But take Bryan out. And seeing as though that Seth Rollins is going for the Universal Championship, and it's highly likely that he's going to win because of the fact that he knocked up the man. He knocked up Becky Lynch. And I'm sure that all of you already knew that, or at least most of you did. And seeing as though that Seth Rollins has a disciple, he has someone who follows him around, who's practically got his back, who's, making sure that he's okay, and for that matter is going to be in his corner during his match with Drew McIntyre. Rollins and McIntyre making a great main event match, and I wish that there were higher stakes. Cage match, great, first blood. Never mind, that'll never happen. PG era. That's why they're pushing Daniel Bryan again, cause he's so PG. He doesn't smoke crack. He's like Mr. Rogers, except he's not. He's like a discount caveman, like a Neanderthal. Aside from that, seeing as though that Rollins is facing off against Drew McIntyre, wouldn't it be fitting to have both champions be in that same group? Like maybe Seth Rollins took the disciple Buddy Murphy, not Bob Murphy, Buddy Murphy under his wing, and Buddy Murphy's been learning so much to the point to where he's now ready for an Intercontinental Championship shot. The other 3 preliminary matches on that card, they look great. Sheamus facing off against Jeff Hardy, that one's unpredictable. Not sure who's going to win. They've made it extremely obvious who's going to win against Bryan and Gulak. It's really hard to remember what these preliminary matches are, leading up to. But they just look like, now that I've seen the card, and I can see the writing on the wall, that Bryan is to win. And after Bryan wins, what exactly happens? How exactly does that further Bryan's career? Aside from... And what I was going to do, what I was going to say, and I'm not sure how... the children in the wrestling business, they might be important. They might be, because that's your local fan base, I guess. But John Cena's no longer on TV. Daniel Bryan can only kiss so much ass. And giving him a title is only going to raise the ratings so much. AEW is beating you guys in the ratings, WWE. And quite frankly, I'm happy about it. Really, I am. I'm giddy. Giddy up, cowboy. God damn it. Anyway, what I mean to say is that you're doing this wrong, WWE. And I've been trying so hard to tell you how to do it right. And I don't know what to say anymore. If I was in charge, things would be a little bit different. Still sticking to the PG era, of course, but um, almost like with an Iron Fist. And instead of making it more cartoony, I would make it less cartoony and more family friendly. You know, I would make it less of a Scooby Doo sitcom, because telling me to stop watching professional wrestling is like telling my grandmother to stop watching Days of Our Lives. It's not going to happen. At the same time, I haven't seen a professional wrestling. I just been keeping up with it on Twitter. I'm not meaning to ramble, and I'm not meaning to once again, like at the beginning of the fucking video, talk about me again. But it's something that has to eventually come up, unfortunately. But at the end of the day, WWE, if you were to push the Disciple over Bryan, if you were to push Buddy Murphy into a position where him and Seth Rollins look really strong because they're like this power group, because they hold all the titles, all the championships, and maybe there's a swerve that I don't see coming. But instead of just making Buddy Murphy look like Seth Rollins' lackey, how about you actually strap a championship to this man and watch him rock it to the top of the earth? For that matter, the top of the mountain is what I meant to say. Watch him just blast through the stratosphere. Break your fucking glass wall. Because that's what you've put him on. No, we can't do that. Why? Because Buddy Murphy is just like Drew Gulak. He's nothing more than a cruiserweight competitor. And therefore he's not eligible for the Intercontinental Championship. You people make me sick. If you actually believe that Buddy Murphy, or Drew Gulak for that matter, one of the two or both, shouldn't be applicable for a Intercontinental Championship match, what's wrong with you? Allow me to poke some holes in your story, because if I remember correctly, Seth Rollins, who is a heavyweight by the way, dropped the Universal Championship to one Finn Balor. And when he did, that almost transcended everything, because Balor is just like Austin Aries, just like Neville. He's just a little bit more popular. And there's nothing wrong with Finn Balor. I'm not knocking the dude. I'm simply knocking the situation that the WWE has decided to put him in whenever they did give him a championship shot against Seth Rollins at a aptly named pay-per-view that I'm not sure what the name of it was. It was the Universal Championship, and Finn Balor was apparently the first Irish-born champion. But he had to relinquish it the next night due to a shoulder surgery. One more thing. I'm going to do a separate video, because this one's getting really long, but on AEW, and that'll probably be in about 2 or 3 days. I'd like to thank you all for tuning in. No, I wouldn't. Get out of here. I feel like I've made my point about the fact that Daniel Bryan doesn't deserve a championship, or the fact that you could take a young upstart in someone else and possibly make them, you would make them more of a star rather than relying on the stars that you've already created. In this business, professional wrestling, you have to always be looking to the future. You can't always rely on Hulk Hogan to always be coming back, or The Rock, or Steve Austin, because this is a very dangerous work that they do. This is very meticulous. You have to have both body and mind in tune whenever you're doing this type of work, regardless of the fact that you may or may not think that it takes a considerable amount of concentration, a considerable amount of athleticism, and for that matter, a considerable amount of charisma. A lot of things that a lot of people on this earth, especially working for the WWE today, doesn't have. However, AEW, on the other hand, we'll talk about that in another video, because I'm not making some hour-long video where I just sit here and rant about nonsensical bullshit that has nothing to do with the subject at hand. The fact that Daniel Bryan is in the preliminaries of the Intercontinental Championship match is a disgrace. The fact that he was even put in the same sentence, let alone the same building, as the WWE, which is supposed to be the pinnacle of wrestling. The fact that he's even in the same building as a championship held by the pinnacle of wrestling, which that's going to change very soon, yeah, mind you, because people like Britt Baker are transcending wrestling history. And for that matter, people like Adam Cole, who deserve a shot at the Intercontinental Championship. And I have one more question. Where the hell is Samoa Joe? Nobody has been able to answer that for me. Please, if you have an answer, DM me on Twitter at P1_Bay. That's B-A-Y, B-A-Y. P1, the number 1, not just spelled out O-N-E or any other capital P. The number 1 _ I hate underscores. Don't spell underscore, by the way. Actually use the goddamn fucking symbol. B-A-Y, B-A-Y. Thank you so much.